The massive peacekeeping fleet materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Admiral Zarthok of the Galactic Unity Council observed the small blue planet through the bridge's holographic display, his forearms crossed in what passed for contemplation among his species. Tactical analysis complete, Admiral. His subordinate, Commander Vextra, announced from her station. Third planet shows signs of advanced civilization. Nuclear capability confirmed. Aggressive tendencies noted from intercepted communications. Zarthok's mandibles clicked in what resembled satisfaction. Another primitive species requiring intervention. How many ships does their orbital defense network show? Minimal, sir. Perhaps 24 combat vessels in various stages of deployment. Their technology appears to be fusion-based, crude by our standards. The Admiral turned to address his bridge crew, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had pacified dozens of worlds. The Galaxy Unity Council has determined that this species, humans they call themselves, poses a potential threat to galactic stability. Their expansion into neighboring systems, combined with their documented history of warfare, makes intervention necessary. He gestured to the tactical display showing Earth's continents. Standard pacification protocol: disable their orbital defenses, occupy key military installations, and establish compliance monitoring stations. The humans will be relocated to designated zones where they can be properly supervised. Resistance is expected, Admiral? Vextra asked. There is always resistance initially, Zarthok replied with the tone of someone who had done this many times before. But once they understand the futility of opposing the Unity Council, they submit. They always do. The peacekeeping fleet consisted of 47 vessels, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag. The lead ship, the Harmony's Decree, was a kilometer-long dreadnought that had brought peace to 17 different worlds. Behind it followed cruisers, destroyers, and troop transports carrying enough forces to occupy an entire planet. Send the standard compliance message, Zarthok ordered. On Earth, the message arrived at UNUSA headquarters in Vienna at 0347 hours local time. Dr. Priya Kapoor, the night shift supervisor, nearly spilled her coffee as every alert system in the building activated simultaneously. This is impossible, she muttered, staring at the readings flooding her screens. Signal origin shows near Jupiter orbit, but the energy signature? She paused, double-checking the calculations. This would require technology centuries ahead of ours. The message itself was translated automatically by Earth's most advanced AI systems. Attention inhabitants of the third planet. This is Admiral Zarthok of the Galactic Unity Council Peacekeeping Fleet. Your species has been designated as potentially disruptive to galactic harmony. By the authority vested in us by the Unity Council, we are here to implement stabilization protocols. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Compliance will be rewarded with preservation. You have 6 of your planetary rotations to surrender all military assets and prepare for relocation. Within minutes, the message was being analyzed by every major government on Earth. In the Situation Room beneath the Pentagon, General Rebecca Stone stared at the translated text with grim determination. Analysis? She asked her assembled staff. Colonel David Park, the Pentagon's chief xenoanalyst, cleared his throat. Based on the energy signatures, they're not bluffing about their technological superiority. The lead vessel alone shows power readings that exceed our entire global nuclear arsenal. Weapons assessment? Minimal data, but preliminary scans suggest directed energy weapons, possibly antimatter-based. Their smallest escort ship could probably level Manhattan. General Stone nodded slowly. What about their numbers? 47 ships total, mix of capital ships and support vessels. Crew complement estimated at around 50,000 based on ship sizes and configuration. Recommendations? The room fell silent. Finally, Admiral William Chen, head of Space Command, spoke up. Honestly, General, if this were any other enemy, I'd recommend immediate surrender. Our orbital defense platforms might, and I stress might, be able to take out 1 or 2 of their smaller ships before being obliterated. But Stone sensed there was more. But these aren't conquerors, Colonel Park interjected, reviewing the message again. They're peacekeepers. They think they're doing us a favor. That kind of arrogance, it might be exploitable. General Stone stood, pacing to the large display showing Earth's current military assets. Get me a secure line to Beijing, London, Moscow, and New Delhi. If we're going to die, we're going to die as one species. 6 hours later, in the depths of NORAD, representatives from every major nation huddled around a conference table. The debate had been fierce, but the conclusion was unanimous. Humanity would not go quietly into supervised extinction. President Catherine Walsh leaned forward, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were discussing. Dr. Martinez, what's the status of Project Aurora? Dr. Rosa Martinez, head of the classified Aurora program, looked uncomfortable. Madam President, Aurora was designed for asteroid deflection and deep space mining. Using it as a weapon would be unprecedented. But possible? Theoretically, yes. But it's never been tested at the power levels we're discussing. And even if it works, we'd only get one shot before they adapt. What exactly is Project Aurora? Asked Prime Minister Harrison from Britain. General Stone activated a holographic display. Aurora is a network of solar collection satellites positioned near the sun. They gather solar energy and can redirect it via focus beams to power deep space operations. The theoretical maximum output. She paused. Could probably crack a moon. How long to retarget the system? President Walsh asked. 18 hours, Dr. Martinez replied. But I have to stress this is completely untested territory. We might end up cooking ourselves instead of them. Foreign Minister Liu from China leaned back in his chair. What about their demand for surrender? Do we respond? We respond, General Stone said grimly. But not how they expect. The response was transmitted exactly 72 hours after the aliens' ultimatum, broadcast on all frequencies so every ship in their fleet would receive it simultaneously. Admiral Zarthok of the Galactic Unity Council. This is General Rebecca Stone, speaking for all humanity. We have reviewed your demands for surrender and relocation. After careful consideration by the democratically elected representatives of every nation on Earth, our response is as follows. No. Earth is our home. These are our stars. These are our children you threaten to relocate. You speak of peace while bringing weapons of war. You speak of harmony while planning to destroy our civilization. If you want our world, you'll have to take it from our cold, dead hands. We may be primitive by your standards, but we are not defenseless. And we are definitely not going quietly. You have 1 hour to leave our solar system. This is your only warning. On the bridge of Harmony's decree, Admiral Zarthok listened to the human response with what could only be described as amusement. Brave little creatures, he mused. Their defiance is almost admirable. Orders, Admiral? Commander Vexra asked. Begin the pacification. Target their orbital installations first, then their major population centers. Make it clear that resistance is futile. The first wave of attacks began 15 minutes later. Alien energy weapons lanced down from orbit, striking Earth's defense platforms with surgical precision. The International Space Station vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. Military satellites were picked off one by one. But as the alien ships moved into closer orbit to begin targeting ground installations, they passed through what appeared to be empty space near Earth's moon. Hidden in the shadow of Luna, disguised as debris from an old mining operation, waited humanity's most desperate gambit. Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera floated in the cramped cockpit of the stealth reconnaissance ship Peregrine, watching as the alien fleet approached. His ship was barely larger than a fighter, powered down to almost nothing, coated with materials that absorb both radar and thermal signatures. Control, this is Peregrine, he whispered into his comm. Package 1 is in position. I have visual on their formation. Copy, Peregrine, came the response from NORAD. Aurora is charging. Hold position until firing solution is confirmed. Alex watched as the massive alien dreadnought passed within a few hundred kilometers of his position. Up close, the ship was even more intimidating, bristling with weapons, its hull scarred from previous battles. He could see smaller ships launching from its bays, heading toward Earth to begin the ground assault. All units, this is Aurora Control. Dr. Martinez's voice crackled over the secure channel. Primary array is at 90% charge. Targeting solution confirmed on the enemy flagship. All stations, prepare for Operation Daybreak. Alex held his breath. Operation Daybreak was humanity's last card to play. For months, teams of engineers had worked in secret to modify the Aurora solar collection system. Instead of gathering energy for peaceful purposes, the massive satellite network had been reconfigured as the largest directed energy weapon ever conceived. Firing in 10 seconds, Aurora Control announced. All units clear the target zone. High above the solar system, dozens of collection satellites adjusted their positions with mathematical precision. Each one had been gathering solar energy for hours, storing it in capacitor banks that should have been impossible to build with current technology. But humanity had a gift for making the impossible work when their survival depended on it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, firing. The beam that lanced across space was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediate and devastating. The concentrated solar energy struck the Harmony's decree amidships, and for a moment the massive dreadnought seemed to resist. Then its shields collapsed, its hull began to glow, and sections of the kilometer-long vessel simply ceased to exist. "Direct hit!" Alex called out, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "Their flagship is breaking apart." But his celebration was short-lived. The rest of the alien fleet was already responding, their formation shifting as they tried to locate the source of the attack. Energy weapons began firing wildly into space, searching for the hidden weapon. "All Aurora satellites, emergency scatter protocol," Dr. Martinez ordered. "They're targeting our position." The alien response was swift and brutal. Their sensors had tracked the energy beam back to its source, and now every ship in their fleet was firing at the Aurora network. One by one, the solar collection satellites were destroyed, taking with them humanity's only weapon capable of damaging the alien ships. Admiral Zarthok stood amid the chaos of his damaged bridge, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows across the bulkheads. Half his flagship was gone, vented to space in the initial attack, and they were running on emergency power. "Damage report!" he demanded. 60% casualties, Admiral," his surviving tactical officer reported. "Main engines offline, weapon systems severely damaged. We're alive, but barely." "How?" Zarthok asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "How did a primitive species manage to deploy a weapon of that magnitude?" "Unknown, sir. The energy signature was consistent with stellar collection technology, but modified in ways we've never seen. They turned their sun into a weapon." Zarthok's 4 eyes widened. In all his years of pacifying worlds, he had never encountered a species desperate enough or clever enough to weaponize their own star. "Fleet status? 23 ships still operational. The others are either destroyed or too damaged to continue operations." Less than half his fleet remained, against a species that was supposedly primitive and outmatched. "What's the tactical assessment for surface operations?" The tactical officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "Sir, given their willingness to use weapons of such magnitude, ground operations would be inadvisable, if they're willing to risk damaging their own planet to stop us." "They might have other surprises waiting," Zarthok finished. He turned to stare at the blue planet below, now seeing it with very different eyes. "Open a channel to the surface." The transmission reached Earth's leadership minutes later. General Stone accepted the call in the NORAD command center, surrounded by her staff and the leaders of every major nation. "Humans of Earth." Admiral Zarthok's image appeared on the main screen, his uniform scorched and his bridge clearly damaged behind him. "I am Admiral Zarthok. You have surprised us." "We told you to leave," General Stone replied simply. "Did you think we were bluffing? Your species shows combat capabilities we did not anticipate. The Unity Council's intelligence was flawed." "The Unity Council's intelligence was arrogant," President Walsh interjected, stepping into view. "You assume that because we're younger than you, we're weaker. You assume that because we don't have faster-than-light travel, we can't fight back. Those were dangerous assumptions." Zarthok paused, studying the human leaders. "What do you propose?" "You leave, now, all of you," General Stone said. "Return to your Unity Council and tell them that Earth is not available for pacification. We're not a threat to galactic peace. We're just a species that refuses to be enslaved." And if we refuse? Dr. Martinez stepped forward, her tablet showing telemetry from the Aurora system. Admiral, what you experienced was Aurora operating at roughly 40% capacity. We have backup systems you haven't seen yet. More importantly, you now know that we're willing to use them. She gestured to the data on her screen. Your fleet is crippled. Half your ships are gone. You're operating on emergency power in hostile space, millions of kilometers from the nearest friendly port. Meanwhile, we're fighting in our own backyard, with the entire industrial capacity of 8 billion humans behind us. The wise choice, President Walsh added, would be to leave while you still can. On his damaged bridge, Admiral Zarthok weighed his options. The humans were right. His fleet was in no condition for a prolonged battle. But returning to the Unity Council with news of failure would mean disgrace, possibly even execution. There is another option, he said finally. A negotiated withdrawal? The Unity Council need not know the full extent of our difficulties here. We're listening, General Stone replied. An agreement. Humanity agrees to restrict its expansion to this system for the next 50 solar cycles. In return, Earth is removed from the pacification list. No further Unity Council intervention. The world leaders exchanged glances. 50 years of isolation versus immediate destruction. It wasn't much of a choice. 75 years. President Walsh countered, and we want formal recognition that Earth is off-limits to all Unity Council members. Done, Zarthok replied quickly. Too quickly, General Stone noted. The alien admiral was more desperate than he was letting on. There's one more condition, she added. We want a full technological exchange. Your people learn from us, we learn from you. Scientific cooperation, not conquest. Zarthok hesitated. The Unity Council does not typically engage in technology transfer with less advanced species. Admiral, Dr. Martinez interrupted, her voice carrying steel. Let me be clear about something. We just took out half your fleet with solar panels and some creative engineering. How less advanced do you really think we are? After a long pause, Zarthok nodded. Agreed. Scientific exchange will be part of the treaty. 3 days later, the formal signing took place aboard the Harmony's Decree, now limping along on auxiliary power. The human delegation was led by General Stone and included representatives from every major nation. As they toured the damaged alien vessel, Colonel Park leaned over to whisper to General Stone, "Ma'am, something doesn't add up. This ship is too damaged for what we hit it with. Either our weapons were more effective than we thought, or they're not as advanced as they claimed," Stone finished quietly. I noticed that too. The signing ceremony was brief and formal. As the last signatures were applied to the digital treaty, Admiral Zarthok approached General Stone privately. Your species is unusual, he admitted. Most worlds we pacify fall within hours. You not only fought back, you inflicted significant casualties. We're stubborn that way, Stone replied. But, Admiral, I have to ask, why did you really agree to this treaty so quickly? Zarthok's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. The Unity Council exaggerates its capabilities. Our fleet was the largest they could spare, and it represented nearly 30% of our total military assets. Losing half of it to a supposedly primitive world, he trailed off, would be politically disastrous, Stone finished. Indeed. Your species has done something no other world has accomplished. You have forced the Unity Council to negotiate as equals. And what happens in 75 years? Zarthok looked at the human delegation, then at his own damaged ship. Honestly, I suspect by then you'll be the ones teaching us. The departure of the Unity Council fleet was watched by billions of humans around the world. 23 ships, barely half the number that had arrived, limped out of Earth's solar system at reduced speed. Many showed visible damage, and several had to be towed by their companions. In the NORAD command center, General Stone watched the last alien vessel disappear from their screens. Status report on our losses. Minimal considering, Colonel Park replied. We lost most of the Aurora network, but the core infrastructure survived. Orbital defenses took a beating, but we can rebuild. And what did we learn? Dr. Martinez looked up from her data tablets. That solar energy focused through a collection network makes a hell of a weapon. Also, that our primitive human engineering is apparently more innovative than we thought. President Walsh joined them at the command console. More importantly, we learned that bullies can be stood up to. This Unity Council has been pacifying worlds for centuries, but they've been picking on species that couldn't fight back effectively. What's our next move? General Stone asked. We build, Walsh replied firmly. We build better ships, better weapons, better defenses. Because in 75 years, when that treaty expires, I want to make damn sure we're ready for whatever comes next. And if they come back sooner? Dr. Martinez smiled, holding up her tablet showing preliminary designs for Aurora marked second. Then they'll discover that humans are very quick learners, and we have a solar system full of resources they just taught us how to weaponize. 6 months later, in the depths of space far from Earth, Admiral Zarthok stood before the Unity Council Tribunal. His uniform was fresh, his wounds healed, but the shame of his failure hung over him like a dark cloud. Explain to us, High Counselor Mertok demanded, his ancient voice carrying the authority of centuries, how a single primitive world managed to destroy half of our most powerful fleet. Honorable Counselor, Zarthok began carefully, the humans possess capabilities that our intelligence reports did not indicate. They showed remarkable adaptability and innovation in their defensive measures. Innovation? Another counselor scoffed. They have barely achieved interplanetary travel. Their weapons are chemical-based. How could they pose any threat to our forces? Zarthok activated a holographic display showing the Aurora weapon system. They weaponized their sun, Honored Ones. Using solar collection technology, they focused stellar energy into a directed beam weapon. The power output exceeded anything in our arsenal. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, High Counselor Mertok spoke. Are you telling us that a species we classified as barely spacefaring managed to turn their own star into a weapon? Yes, Counselor. And they did it in a matter of hours, as an improvised defensive measure? Impossible. I was there, Counselor. I watched half my fleet disappear in seconds. And when we demanded surrender, they told us to leave or face worse. Another counselor, Velnara, leaned forward. What is your assessment of their true capabilities? Zarthok chose his words carefully. Dangerous, counselor. Not because of their technology, but because of their mindsets. They would rather die fighting than live in subjugation. And they have the ingenuity to make that fight very costly. Recommendations? Leave them alone, counselors. The treaty we negotiated keeps them contained to their system for 75 cycles. By then, either they will have advanced beyond our ability to control them, or they will have destroyed themselves through internal conflict. High Counselor Mertok considered this. And if they advance beyond our control, then we hope they remember that we chose to negotiate rather than exterminate them. The council deliberated for hours. Finally, they reached their decision. The human homeworld is hereby classified as a protected development zone, High Counselor Mertok announced. No Unity Council vessels are to approach their system without explicit authorization from this council. Admiral Zarthok, you will file a complete report on their capabilities for distribution to all fleet commanders. Yes, Counselor. An Admiral? Yes, Counselor. Let this be a lesson. Arrogance has cost us more ships and lives than any enemy weapon. Never again will we assume that a younger species is a weaker species. Back on Earth, humanity was already proving that assumption correct. In shipyards from Luna to Mars, new vessels were under construction. Ships designed with the lessons learned from their encounter with the Unity Council. The Aurora network was being rebuilt, but this time with redundancies and mobility that would make it impossible to eliminate. More importantly, the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that the universe contained those who would subjugate them, had unified humanity in a way that nothing else could have. The old divisions between nations seemed petty in the face of existential threats from among the stars. Dr. Martinez stood in the new Aurora Control Center, watching as the rebuilt satellite network came online. The display showed energy collection rates that exceeded the original system by orders of magnitude. System status, she asked her deputy. All nodes online and operational, came the reply. Collection efficiency at 147% of design specifications. Targeting systems functional. We could probably crack an asteroid at Mars orbit. Let's hope we never have to find out, Martinez replied. But privately, she was proud of what humanity had accomplished. They had faced an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority, and not only survived, but sent them packing. General Stone entered the control center, looking pleased. Dr. Martinez, I have news from the shipyards. The first of the new defensive platforms will be operational within 6 months. Specifications: self-sufficient, mobile, and armed with Aurora-class energy weapons. If anyone decides to pay us another unfriendly visit, they'll find us much better prepared. Martinez nodded approvingly. And our diplomatic initiatives? Slower progress, but we're getting responses. Turns out there are other species who've had run-ins with the Unity Council. Some of them are very interested in establishing relationships with the species that sent a peacekeeping fleet packing. 6 months later, the first alien ambassador to Earth arrived aboard a sleek vessel that bore no resemblance to the bulky Unity Council ships. Ambassador Kreetal of the Free Worlds Alliance was welcomed with full honors at the newly constructed diplomatic station in Earth orbit. Your reputation precedes you, the ambassador told President Walsh during their first formal meeting. The Unity Council's defeat at human hands has become something of a legend among the oppressed worlds. We didn't defeat them, Walsh replied modestly. We just convinced them that conquering us would be more trouble than it was worth. Modest as well as brave, Kreetal observed, her translator rendering her clicking speech into perfect English. My people would like to discuss a mutual defense pact. The Unity Council may respect your strength, but there are other threats in the galaxy. We're listening. As the months passed, Earth found itself at the center of a growing alliance of species who had either been victimized by the Unity Council or feared becoming victims. The irony was not lost on humanity's leaders. By refusing to be pacified, they had become the cornerstone of galactic peace. 1 year after the failed invasion, Admiral Zarthok received a transmission at his new posting on the Frontier Worlds. It was a simple message from Earth. Admiral Zarthok, this is General Stone. Our scientists have made some interesting discoveries about faster-than-light travel. If you're ever in the neighborhood and interested in a peaceful exchange of ideas, you're welcome to visit. We promise not to shoot this time. Earth? Zarthok stared at the message for a long time. Then, for the first time since his disgrace at Earth, he allowed himself to smile. Perhaps there was hope for the galaxy after all. 3 years later, the first human-built starship broke the light barrier, carrying diplomats and scientists to a dozen worlds that had never known freedom from Unity Council oppression. The ship's name, emblazoned on its hull in a dozen different languages, was a promise to the galaxy. Defender of the Free. And in the depths of space, monitoring stations maintained by a dozen different species kept watch for Unity Council fleets, but none came. The bullies of the galaxy had learned that some fights weren't worth picking. Humanity had not only survived first contact, they had changed the course of galactic history by refusing to kneel. The age of enforced peace was over. The age of earned peace had begun,